Chapter 3. The Tower. Lag Hall was a stately building of yellow sandstone with a red roof and an ancient square tower at one corner. Near the top of this tower, 30 feet from the ground, Harry was given his room. "I hope you'll like it up here," said Mrs. Good, the housekeeper. "It's nice and dry, and there's a wonderful view." "A real boy's room," we thought. "I'm sure you won't mind the stairs with your young legs." "No, it's fabulous," said Harry. "I'm afraid you'll be alone up here with these thick walls. There's no door through to the house, not yet anyway, but it was either that or a room at the back, and this is much nicer. And there is the intercom, of course. You sure you won't be frightened?" "No, I'm too old for that," Harry lied, "and I'm used to being alone anyway. And anyway, I've got Tangle." He buried his face in the shaggy coat of a mongrel that had attached itself to him the moment he stepped out of the Mercedes. At once Aunt Bridget had said that Tangle could be Harry's dog. "If there are any robbers or anything, Tangle will see them off, won't you, boy?" Mrs. Good smiled. "Yes, I'm sure he will," she said. "I've never had a dog before," said Harry. As if to show him what a good thing dogs were, Tangle jumped up, eyes like diamonds, behind a black and tan fringe, and licked his mouth and eyes with a wet tongue. "Get off! Oh, stop it!" Harry wrestled him to the floor. "If you continue up the staircase," said Mrs. Good, "there's a trapdoor so you can get out onto the roof. Like a church tower, only not so high, of course. But you've got to promise me that you'll take care up there. No silly games." "Cross my heart, hope to die." Harry spat on a finger and drew a big cross where he imagined his heart to be. "I'm serious," insisted Mrs. Good. "No nonsense, no daring. You could hurt yourself." Harry pushed Tangle away. "All right, I promise." The housekeeper smiled. "Everyone's been looking forward so much to you coming. It'd be nice to have some young blood around the place." "But not all squashed up and yucky at the bottom of the tower," said Harry. "Exactly," she laughed. "Anyway, lunch in 20 minutes. Your aunties have had to go into town again. We'll have to have it in the kitchen. Come down when you're ready." Her footsteps faded down the spiral stairs. Sounds of summer came from the open window. Harry looked round the large chamber. He loved it. His room, and no Gestapo Lil. Crooked beams crossed the ceiling, big posters of Goofy, Aslan, the league champions, and a boy on a motorbike decorated the white, uneven walls. For furniture, there was a giant wardrobe, a huge chest of drawers, a set of shelves for books and souvenirs, and at one window, an old table and chair. Beneath the other window stood a comfortable-looking bed with a Disney duvet. Tangle had settled himself on the foot and lay cleaning his paw with a red tongue. Harry flung himself alongside and leaned across the broad window-sill. Swallows swooped for flies in the sunshine. He loosened the ancient catch and pushed the window wide. Below him lay lawns and flower beds of Lag Hall, and to one side the red roof and chimneys of the house. Beyond the lawns lay many acres of woods and a rolling sea of green. A marble filly stood buried among the trees. A white horse grazed in a paddock. Further off, Harry saw a tempting flash of water at the end of a reedy lake with a small jetty and a rowing boat pulled up alongside. "Great!" He jumped down and threw open the lid of his suitcase, rummaging among the old clothes which were all he had been allowed to bring. Disturbed by the activity, Tangle too sprang down and snatched vigorously on the rug, then stood expectantly, waiting to see what would happen next. It did not take Harry long to throw aside his grey trousers, pull on a faded red t-shirt, battered jeans given to him by a friend at school, on the small side now with a faulty zip and torn back pocket, and trainers through which his big toes winked at every step. Briskly he ran a comb through his cropped hair. Then, feeling every inch king of the castle and monarch of all he surveyed, he called Tangle and ran from the room. In the middle of the afternoon, Harry sat in a long stone shed with Natty Slack, the gardener and handyman at Lag Hall. The air was sweet with resin from a stack of newly split logs. Through the sunlit door he could see a kitchen garden and greenhouses strung with tomatoes. Natty was very tall and thin and wore blue overalls. His head was bald, his shoulders stooped, and he had a long, humorous face. The shed was his workshop. As they talked, he sat on an upturned box and sharpened the side with smooth strokes of a whetstone. "I am amazed they never told ye about the ghost." He had a broad Geordie accent. "Famous hereabouts, old Gogley they call it. Don't mention it outside the grounds, mind, but I thought your aunties would have warned you." "What's it like?" Harry enjoyed a ghost story. "I'm not sure I should tell you." It's a terrible sight, they say. A big beast, a sort of cross between a dog the size of that door, a dragon, and a shaggy man. Seems to shift a bit in shape like. Different people see different things, but they all agree on one thing. It's got long claws and teeth, and big glaring eyes. And it scares your witness. That's 4 things. Harry hugged his knees and gave a shiver. Where does he walk, this old Goggly? Have you seen him? That's the funny thing. You think he would haunt the tower up where your room is. That's the oldest part of the house. But it never does. For some reason, that's the safest place of all. That's partly why they put you there. Usually, folks see it just outside, in them bushes, black at night, mind, and crossing the gravel to peer in the windows of the house, and maybe catch somebody with them long claws. Have you seen it, Mr. Slack? Mr. Slack? Who's he when he's at home? I'm Nutty to my friends, and I reckon you and me's going to be friends. Call us Nutty. He laid aside the whetstone and took a battered tobacco tin out. With gnarled fingers he smoothed out a cigarette paper and shredded golden tobacco into it. Have I seen it? Well, not myself, I have to admit, but that's because I stayed well out of the road around the time it walks. He put the crumpled cigarette to his lips and flicked an ancient lighter. Reeds of blue smoke clouded above his head. But I've spoken to them as says they have seen it, as I'm telling you. I count myself lucky. Harry scratched Tangle's back. If I look out of my window tonight, do you think I'll see it? Nah, you cannot see it just like that. Maybe you'll never see it, or maybe you don't believe it exists. Then one night, just when you're least expecting it, bang! There they are. There it is. Big glaring eyes and claws outstretched, enough to make you freeze. So if you were me, said Harry, you wouldn't go wandering around at night. Right in one. Nutty shot a glance from beneath shaggy brows. Not unless you fancy coming face to face with old Goggly. I wouldn't risk it myself. Mrs. Good said nothing about it, Harry said. No, well, she wouldn't. Doesn't hold with ghosts and such like. She wouldn't want to frighten you, not on your first night in the tower. Harry remembered the lunch he's just eaten. She's a good cook, isn't she? She is that, Nutty nodded. A real top-notcher. Why do you like her? Harry grinned. How do you mean? Nutty's face turned pink. Just the way you said it. Ah, well, maybe's I do and maybe's I don't. He rubbed his nose with a big hand. None of your business anyway. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be too nosy. Harry hesitated. But she said she liked you too. Did she? She said to me, you go and see Mr. Slack. You'll not find a kinder, cleverer man 10 miles around. Did she? Nutty's ears glowed scarlet. He rummaged in a sack at his feet to cover his confusion. Harry was not accustomed to shy grown-ups. It seemed best to change the conversation. Have you been here long, Nutty? Still, Nutty rummaged. I must have been on 7 years now. I used to work up in the pits, up Newcastle way. His face appeared, pink to the top of his bald head. Vigorously, he blew his nose. Then your Auntie Florrie took us on to look after her cars, gee them up a bit. I've always been a bit of a dab hand with the engines. Do you look after the old Merc? Harry said eagerly. Aye, but I believe they took you for a bit of a spin around the aerodrome this morning. It was great. Harry leaned forward. Can you tell me about the 2 engines? I should be able to. I designed them and fitted them myself. But I wouldn't go talking about it round the countryside. Some folk might not understand. Let's keep it our little secret, shall we? Harry longed to ask why. Will you show me? He said. Certainly, if you're interested. Come round this evening after your dinner. I'll be in the garage. Nutty smiled. Not too late, mind. Remember old Goggly? He pulled an ancient watch for his overalls. Time I was on my way. Mrs. Good told us to come for my threeses in a few minutes. As they left the shed, the sun struck hot through Harry's t-shirt. He screwed up his eyes against the glare. Nutty hitched aside, comfortable on his shoulder. Got half an acre of grass to cut for Chalky and Socrates. You'll meet them later. He nodded across the front forecourt and lawns. If you head over there, through the trees a bit, you'll come to the lake. You can swim, I take it? Harry nodded. How well? I've got medals. Medals, no less. I will take care. Don't want you drowned on your first day. I've fixed up the rotten planks on the jetty for you. Rigged up a bit of a ladder. It'll make a nice diving platform. Nipping the stub of his cigarette, he strolled off past the greenhouses. Harry and Tangle set off in the other direction, heading for the lake in the woods.